So, Bastian, it's gonna be wild.
It's gonna be wild.
If I think about the energy system, I think we're currently living one of the biggest transitions, like in modern society. And at Octopus Energy, you're building a company right in the middle of that shift. How does that feel?
It feels really good, to be honest. It feels really like we're at a point in time where, and I don't think enough people really realize this, is we will see a huge system change when it comes to energy. The way energy is produced, where it's produced, how it's consumed, when it's consumed, will change entirely over the next 2 to 3 years even. And we're right in the middle of it now.
Totally, and I think the subtitle is also, it's gonna be wild, but you better prepare for it, right? So, and I think if I look at the whole value chain of the energy system, it's really from the consumers that will definitely change their behavior going forward, to the energy generation, the topic we are working on at Marvel Fusion, to the whole system in between. So where do you already see those shifts happening? And yeah, what can actually people in this room, whether they're like at what position they are in that supply chain, kind of like start changing their behavior?
I think what's really interesting, and I think we also have, like, for this talk, we have the iPhone moment of energy.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is also an interesting topic to go into, because it's a very consumer-focused idea with the iPhone. It's not we're not talking about energy plans and that kind of stuff. So it's really, what we're really seeing right now is something that happens quite regularly in the world, but not so often, is when you come to these system changes. And for instance, we've seen it the last time with an iPhone, where there was a point in time where these little supercomputers came into the market, and it was kind of clunky. You maybe knew somebody who had something like this, but you hadn't really experienced it yourself. And then it feels like overnight, everyone had a little supercomputer in their pocket, and you could not imagine a life without it anymore. And that wasn't 10 years later after the iPhone came to market. That was maybe 2, 3 years later. And we're seeing a similar thing now in energy, where for the first time ever, energy is now a technology. It's not a commodity that we need to dig or pump out of the earth. And what that really means for us is that everything that applies to technology will now also apply to energy, which is mainly that if it's a technology, you can consistently drive down cost and price. And so we've seen this with solar panels, we've seen this with batteries. Every year we see a drop in prices that now over the last 10 to 20 years, these technologies have reduced in cost by 90 to close to 100%. And that means that it's accessible for everyone now. Something that used to be a few years ago very specialized, you'd see somebody put PV on their roof, and you'd wonder if that even works, and they'd struggle themselves a little bit. And now it's something, if you go to the hardware store, there's just a stack of PV panels, and you can take them home, and they're basically plug and play now for every consumer out there.
That's a super interesting topic. When I look at like what we're doing at Marvel Fusion, or in general, building something in the deep tech space, conviction always comes way before when you see the visible results. So when was it at Octopus Energy that you really saw, okay, now it's happening, now we really see a system change?
I think it's really happening now. It's like it's been these last few years where we've always at Octopus tried to really push innovation forward and try to get things that are already possible into reality, rather than sort of talk about it and then talk to regulators and be like, well, if we change a few more things, then it becomes really viable. But we take a lot of risk to sort of say, let's try to get these really edge sort of cases out there for people to experience, to get the first feedback and then scale off the back of this. But it was really like the last 2, 3 years where we've seen this really mass adoption of these technologies, and where we're seeing all of these technologies come together, that the real change is happening for us.
So Bastian, I believe you had the shortest commute from your workplace of anyone here, because Bastian's office is literally in this building here. And you also brought your little friend here. Tell me a bit, like, what do you and your friends do every day at Octopus Energy?
So yes, we have our offices at the back of the buildings in the lab area. What we do is basically we're an energy supplier, but we're not a classic energy supplier. So at the heart, we're actually more a technological company. The first thing we've built when we started 8 years ago was a tech platform that is now known as Kraken, that has recently sort of departed our business in its own business, which solves one of the key problems around energy, where everything that needs to be dealt with around consumers, about energy buying, about feedback, about flexibility, into one platform, and enables an energy supplier to really scale that, to deliver amazing customer service, which is what we strongly focus on, but also be innovative and really delve into the space of renewable energies. And that's at heart what we do.
So if I look at the work we are doing at Marvel Fusion, I do see that regulatory changes can often push new technologies. So to give you an example, fusion energy, for a long time there wasn't a clear regulatory framework for that. Now a couple of years back, the US and also the UK clearly defined that fusion energy will not be regulated as fission energy, but more like when you build industrial plants, like industrial plants. And that really pushed a lot of investment into the area of fusion in those countries. In Germany, we are also currently working on that regulatory framework, and the recent coalition contract also clearly mentioned, okay, we want to regulate fusion not within the nuclear regulatory framework, but outside of that. So that gave a clear push. Where do you see in the energy world you're moving in, like where and how can actually regulatory pushes really enable a transition?
This is a very interesting question, something that is very prominent right now if you look at media and the political discourse. And I think the big issue that I'm seeing is that there's a lot of discourse on how the energy system of the future should look like. And there's a lot of that is based on how the energy system of the past has looked like and how we would scale that up for the future. But this isn't I wouldn't say the task that politicians have. Their task is to provide the infrastructure for everything. So they need to make sure that it's possible for all of these emerging technologies to really come to market. So just a very basic example is electric vehicles. We are seeing and we will see mass adoption of electric vehicles over the next few years. Not decades, but the next few years. And the big question is, how do we deal with the excess increase in energy demand on our systems if we have a lot of EVs on the roads? And for anyone who doesn't know, the classic EV sort of doubles the energy consumption of a small house or household. So that's a huge load on the energy grid if you have a lot of those. Now, the real question isn't, will people be buying electric cars and should we give financing to these cars, or should it be more fossil fuel engines? But the real question is, how do we deal with the fact if a lot of these cars comes, how do we deal with that? So there should be focus around how do we enable flexibility in the grid? How do we make sure we have smart metering in every home? So these like basic infrastructure questions, that's where politicians should focus their discussion.
But if you had like 3 wishes that you can pose to a politician or the regulatory environment, let's say here in Germany, what would those 3 wishes be?
Well, the first is really give flexibility a larger responsibility or space in the energy market. So less than saying an estimated energy demand of the future needs to be covered wholly by gas station or fossil fuel power stations, but really accept that flexibility, using the energy when it's most abundant and storing it and flexing how consumers use the energy, rather than going with the standard model of the fossil past. That would be the first one. The second one is develop the digital infrastructure of the energy system, which here in Germany is mainly install a smart meter into every home and every apartment. So we actually know when and where, how much energy is consumed, and we can have everyone participate from really, really cheap prices. And then the third one would be that we sort of move away from the discussion, what is the better energy source, to really being more open and more willing to try things out. And I think with that, it really goes, and this is kind of to your example, is there's a lot of hurdles in the energy space on how things can and will be done to just be able to allow more and for us to do more. And this is a lot with like regulatory processes and bureaucracy where it takes forever to it takes forever, it used to take forever, but it still takes forever to build a wind turbine.
Yep.
And it should physically, it's very easy. Within 3 to 6 months, if everything is there, you can build a wind turbine, you can win the wind park. And theoretically, you could even build it back in that same amount of time. It still takes 4 years. It's the half time that it used to take, but still 4 years to get through all the regulatory change. And to be honest, this is just a wind turbine. With fusion energy, I think that's even harder.
Totally. And I mean, I have to say that it always strikes me that we take a lot of time discussing, will energy demand increase in Germany by 10% or by 15%? And we have a lot of these debates, while if I look globally, the US are saying we need to triple our energy production between now and 2050. When I look at China, I see a very similar thing happening. I see that, like taking that look to China, that they are doubling down on everything, right? They are doubling down on solar, they are doubling down on wind, they are doubling down on water. In the fusion space, they are building a demonstrator on laser fusion, on magnetic fusion, while we are still having discussions in Germany of do we actually need it? Are you afraid that we are missing that point in Germany, or what's your view on that?
Absolutely. To be honest, this is my biggest fear that I have for the German energy market is we're missing the point in the discussion that we're having. It really is what you're saying. The demand for energy will skyrocket.
And we don't need to discuss, is it doubling or tripling or whatever, right? But I think we can all agree it's going to be more.
It's going to be more. And this is again, we're at another system change point here, is we're moving into an electrification of everything. Yeah. And then we're adding new technology like AI, which again is exceptionally energy hungry. We'll see all of these EVs, we'll see heat pumps, we'll see more and more batteries. Batteries have become so cheap that it just makes sense for every household to get one, even a small pack for an apartment. Yeah. We're seeing more and more machines or processes that we used to have that were fossil fuel run being electrified. Truck fleets are being electrified. And the problem here is that if we go with this sort of estimate, we're always going to be wrong, either because we've been too ambitious and then we're building too much fossil fuel energy sources that sort of crowd out everything else, or we're underestimating, which is far more likely, the demand that we have.
Yeah, and really, I think that's what's frustrating me most about it, because I think there are so amazing opportunities out there for German industry to tap into those markets. Solar, we've once been like the leading country, and we then let it slip, and now it's dominated by the Chinese. But also, if we look at all the new technologies, I do believe that there would be a massive market for German industry and would be an opportunity to build new global champions, and we really need to take that moment. But now let's turn into something maybe more positive. Like, what have been like positive highlights if you look back at the last 12 months?
The really positive highlights have been that we are seeing sort of like the first adoption of these technologies. So to bring an example from Octopus Energy, there is a concept that we have that we call zero bills homes. And these are homes that have PV, they have battery, they have a heat pump, they have a smart meter, and they're being run by our technological systems. And what that enables us is to manage the generation of the energy there, the consumption of the energy, selling it to the market, taking it from the market, basically running a house like a virtual power plant. And that enables us to guarantee to the people that live in that home that they pay €0 energy costs, not once or whenever the wind is blowing, but every day, every month, every year for the next 6 to potentially 10 years. And we've now got nearly 100 of those homes up and running in Germany. We've got a bunch more of those in UK and around the world. And it's these sort of things that are picking up. And there's other examples around charging EV, where it's nearly become free to charge your electric vehicle with vehicle-to-grid solutions, where we're now seeing stuff that we talked about maybe 2 or 3 years as a thing of the future happening today.
So if I think about innovation, and I think we both agree that there is a lot of innovation that will be required in the market, and if I think how we tackle innovation at Marvel Fusion, it's really bringing together scientists with entrepreneurs, with people from industry, because I strongly believe that not like one of these parties will be able to drive innovation by themselves, and it's also looking at partnerships. So at Marvel Fusion, we also believe we won't be the ones like building the entire power plants in the future, but we went into a strategic partnership with Siemens Energy because we believe Siemens Energy is the best party out there to build power plants ultimately. So we strongly leverage partnerships between startups and industry. We strongly believe in bringing in diverse people with different backgrounds to drive innovation within the company, because we have the ambitious goal of building power plants in 10 years from now. And like, if we don't take those levers, we won't be able to achieve that. So how are you tackling innovation at Octopus Energy?
So there's two sides, and I kind of mentioned these before. One is we are a tech company, so we work like a tech company. That hugely differentiates us from any other energy supplier. And then the other side is that we're obsessively customer focused. So it's all about how can we build something that is really beneficial for the customer. Not for us, or not a great business proposition, then we just need to figure out how to sell it to customers, but that's the first step. And then in between there's the mindset of the quicker you get something out, the quicker you have an MVP that you can actually test in the real world. There might be some constraints. It might not be 100% perfect. You need to sort of figure out some stuff in the back still. But the sooner you have it out there and people can actually use it is when you get first feedback, and then you can start iterating on that. And that is really the sort of like core mindset in between those two things, using tech and developing for consumers, and then having the mindset of just ideally, from conceiving an idea to launching a product, in my dream scenario, there's only just 2 weeks. And then we have the first, you don't need to build a product for 100,000 or 1 million customers. You can just build it for 10. And if that works, then you get 100 more on. And if it doesn't work, you stop it and you use something else.
Sometimes I would love that I would work on software as well. Building hardware sometimes like has a bit of a longer cycles than 2 weeks. But we were discussing like China and the US before. If we take our focus more on Europe, is there any positive examples? Because I always feel like we should also look around and see like what is positively happening around us. Is there any positive examples that you see either with our neighboring countries, what they are doing within Europe, or if we have to look to the US or China, what they are doing?
I think, yes, as I said, I mean, I think in general, the energy transition is happening. And the most positive thing across Europe, and I think the world is really, it's a consumer-driven transition. People are investing their own money into this technology at an increasing rate. Actually, the rate is so increasing that every year we underestimate how quickly consumers will be adopting PV, EVs, or batteries. And need to correct, to then need to recorrect every other year because it's just even more. And that means that consumers will be driving the system, the regulators, and everything. And then on the other hand, we are seeing across Europe, especially in the Scandinavian countries, there is a very big adoption of these solutions yet already. And we already see countries that have a lot of smart meter rollouts, like Italy, France, and Spain. They are already bringing all of the sort of advances of the energy revolution to the consumer. And so they're like picking, and there's more and more sort of like looking across the borders at other countries and taking these examples and sort of maybe considering bringing them across. We need more of that, but I think there's been a lot happening in the last few years.
So now that we are coming towards the end of our fireside chat, let's jump into the future, 10, 15 years. And let's say we are future leaders sitting here in 2040, looking back at like January 2026. And let's sketch 2 narratives of what they could discuss. Like the kind of like negative scenario, saying like, oh, we missed all these opportunities. We weren't able to innovate. We need to continue to buy technology from abroad. Yeah, as Europe, we missed that chance. Now, I give the optimistic scenario to you. So what would they say? Why have Bastian and Heike been brave enough in 2026, those future leaders, to put Germany and Europe to the forefront of the energy transition?
Should we start with the negative one and then end with the positive one?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
Which one should we do first then?
Then first
Let's
the
do the
negative
negative.
ones, and let's end on a high.
Yeah. So I think negative side would be we're missing out on all of this. We're staying focused on the existing energy system, how we've been doing it for the last 20, 30 years. We don't digitalize. We don't heavily lean into flex. And we'll end up with a system where we'll have huge grid constraints, meaning there'll be a lot of times when there isn't enough energy in the system, so people won't be able to charge their cars or use their new electric appliances. And we'll miss out on a market because people then will stop spending in these categories because they can't really use them, they're not reliable, and we'll sort of have an entire industry that's not happening. People won't be buying heat pumps, and there'll be 100,000, millions of jobs in that sort of electrotech business that's not going to be happening, at least not in Germany. And we're sort of solidifying or fossilizing sort of a development in time, and we'll just be stuck there while everyone around us that sort of is developing on and moving on into the electric future.
And now the positive scenario.
Well, it's really the flip side of it, and it's going to be energy is going to be highly abundant. We'll have so much energy that it'll be free most of the time, that we'll be driving our electric vehicles for nothing, that consumers will play a really big role in the energy market. The way they consume energy and when they consume energy will be something that they will be also paid for. If there'll be certain times if you charge your car because there's a lot of renewable energy in the system, or if you just, I don't know, bake a cake, you'll be rewarded for taking the energy out of the system. We'll see technological innovation being pushed because there is so much potential in this area. And to your point, I think we'll also again see something that Germany is very famous for is technological expertise and invention. Maybe not mass production, but I think we could be the ones that really push the technological development here.
Okay. Let's be brave, Bastian. Let's push those, and let's hope that we get the optimistic scenario for the future.
Absolutely.